Welcome, guys, to the assessment, a NUEL talk show where we look at the previous games from the week and analyse them with a panel of guests. Joining me this week, I've got Frozen Dawn, Trid, and Synygy. And so, let's actually get into it straight away. Will, can you give us a quick breakdown of how these games went, game two in particular?
Okay, so game one was pretty back and forth, I think, but Birmingham just generally outclassed Aston on sort of kind of every level. I think it would be fair to say that. And in game two, it was, so much more back and forth than game one. It was really, really chaotic. I'm sure the cast has had a fantastic time. Both teams made a huge
We
amount
did.
of mistakes, but overall, Birmingham managed to, I guess, make less mistakes or make less critical mistakes, and they kind of built actually a bit of team comp, which they towards the very end of the game finally put into fruition with the split pushing and actually managed to close the game out by those means.
Absolutely. So, Synygy, I want to bounce over to you. But prior to this weekend, Aston was 7-0 in the NUEL National Championship, and you, Birmingham, was 6-1. So your only loss was to Aston. What happened to turn it around this weekend and bring out a very, well, not necessarily the cleanest 2-0, but still a 2-0 nonetheless?
So something we've always thought we were quite good at is being able to analyze and prepare for our opponents, and it's particularly in the draft phase. And with the format of the qualification week, which is the first time we played Aston, we basically obviously get given the fixture and then play them within like 5 or 10 minutes. And in that amount of time, you can't really do sufficient research. We had a quick scan of things like down the road PGG, what have they played this week, in ranked five, stuff like that. Obviously, they had no NUEL games to go on either, so we couldn't see what they actually picked in competitive games. And so we made a quick stab at a draft, banned away what we thought were real target bans that were good on that patch, and I think we were just wrong in that sense. And they got a good draft, got some OPs away from us that we actually wanted, but we didn't think that they played. And then they had a really strong early game. Their jungler played exceptionally well, snowballed leads like everywhere on the map, and we had no wave clear to deal with it. So we kind of got rolled over in that sense. But coming into this week, we had obviously a whole week to prepare, did a lot more thorough research on drafts. We also had a game against them, so we knew what they played. Like, they showed picks in that game that we did not have a clue that they played at all, but now we knew that they played them, so we're like, okay, we can adapt and deal with this. Also, I think we adapted really well to the new patch. We'd spent a lot of time this week like doing theory crafting with a couple of two or three of us and talking to like other coaches and analysts from different teams and stuff. So we were pretty prepared.
Yeah, it was definitely a strange week with, like you say, 680 carries being banned out while everyone was kind of adapting to the changes. But Trid, I want to come to you now very quickly. Mexi didn't have a good game. Is it fair to say?
Mexi's game in game two was really questionable. I mean, there was a nice little fight I'm sure we're going to see soon where he makes a little bit of a mistake, but I think he generally just underperformed throughout the series.
I think it was quite a hard one. He was, renecting against a Darius with four members of Birmingham sitting on him for about a minute and a half. So
It's not fun.
yeah, it wasn't a very fun time for him at all. And Synygy, coming to you again very quickly, was that a game plan going in there to shut Mexi out of the game?
So in game one, kind of not so much. We just kind of wanted to take Tryndamere because it's Tryndamere on this patch and he's really, really broken. But actually, Mexi played really well. And I think it was fair to say from his game one performance that we did definitely want to. We saw him as a strong point for game two. The crucial thing for us was that the fact that he didn't take TP in game two. And so to us, that just immediately showed that we should lane swap into him because the reason people started taking teleport was to deal with lane swaps and be able to get around the map quickly and rotate your solo laners into lanes where there's farm and stuff. And we knew that if we killed him early, there was no way he'd be able to get back to lane and he'd miss so much experience. And then into a Darius, which is already a really snowballing matchup for either side. If Renekton gets ahead, he can win. If Darius gets ahead, he can win. We set up our Darius just to kind of win on his own, be a split push threat. And from that point on, it was really hard for them to ever deal with the way that we would, go 1-3-1 and then put Kayle in the bot lane, Darius top. No one could deal with him.
Absolutely. I mean, Will, coming over to you as well, the TP meta has changed big time, and Birmingham did respond very, very well to seeing the enemy laner taking Ignite and, well, frankly, completely shut him out of the game. Do you think we're going to see more of that as the weeks go by, people begin to abuse this no TP in the top lane that we might see sometimes?
I definitely think so. Lane swapping, early ganking it so that he loses a couple of waves and you can actually get a level or two ahead is huge, as well as the fact that late game split pushing becomes sort of a very different style of threat. And I think we saw in the second game, Birmingham ran this double split push threat with Kayle and Darius, but Aston didn't take teleport on their Orianna, which they first picked. So in the first rotation, they didn't technically first pick it, but what that meant was that if Birmingham had actually split pushed a lot earlier in the game, which is something I think they perhaps should have done, there would have actually been no answer at all from Aston. Orianna can't out wave clear the Kayle, especially if Orianna doesn't have a TP to get into team fight. So I think TP is something that's really crucial. I think it's always safer to take it unless the matchup is very, very specific, skill based. But I still think TP has a lot of value, especially in certain champions like Orianna and in the top lane.
Okay, fair enough. Trid as well. I want to touch on MSR, that AD carry in the bot lane. In the second game especially, he looked very aggressive, but also still managed to do pretty well because the rest of his team fell behind so considerably. He never really quite took off. His team did try and give him the help, but what was it that just completely shut him out of the game in this?
I disagree with that point. I think that MSR in game 2 was like the saving grace. I mean, you got to look at how the rest of his team were doing in that game. You know, he was able to keep up with the CS lead. He was able to keep up with the gold on the Callista, which is really quite good in comparison to what was happening in the game before, where he was playing Vayne. And you know, he was the only one who showed up, and it's hard. You know, he kept up in the CS. And, you know, he ended the game 11, 6, and 5. He had a substantial gold lead, but, you know, it didn't really matter because his team was so far behind in comparison that it just outweighed the gold. So I don't think it's a case of him not showing up. I mean, yeah, of course he could have done more, but everyone in that game could have done more. But, I mean, he just couldn't really carry a team that heavy.
He also didn't build Last Whisper. I just want to point out that he had 6 items and didn't have a Last Whisper.
We had a Gragas and Darius as a huge
I looked and he had QSS, iEdge, Hurricane, Blade, and Bloodthirst, I think. And I was like,
he had
where's
Bloodthirster and Bork, I remember that. He had 2 lifesteal items.
And there was this, I mean, which is typical on Callista with Hurricane, but then you go Last Whisper. And he was against these frontline tanks. He knew how the fights were going to go. The frontline would just run at you. And he didn't, and he was like the damage dealer, and he didn't have Last Whisper. I think it's just a really critical mistake, actually.
Absolutely, and we do actually have a clip that we want to jump into now, which Trid is going to walk through for you. This is one of the fights that really led to the turnaround point for Birmingham in this series. It was a stage where Cousin had been farming his heart out for a good 15-20 minutes, and then this fight came around, which really got the ball rolling for Birmingham. So Trid, do you want to talk us through this?
Yeah, absolutely. So the clip you're watching now is around about 17 minutes into the game. You see that Aston a little bit away from the mid lane, but that's where Birmingham are, so they want to try and regroup there and defend this in a tower. Synygy does actually manage to walk into Jet. Meanwhile, Mexi just goes really hard on Kuzneo, trying to get the support of Wood League as well. There's a huge Orianna ult that's actually missed onto the entire team. Jet goes for a flash initiation on the 4 members as his team's retreating, so it just costs him his life. And this is where Birmingham flip it round onto Aston. A really good explosive cast from Synygy to lock them further into the fight, and it picks up a triple kill for Kuzneo, who was actually on the back foot, since the beginning of that fight.
And that was actually the point in the game where we did begin to see things begin to go Birmingham's way into that game. From there, Aston never really managed to find themselves a way back in. There was one really scary point at 35 minutes in, which I think we all remember was the point where Kuzneo got caught out quite horribly. And Will, I'm pretty sure you've got a lot to say on the positioning in that fight.
Yeah, I have like 2-page essay on why you shouldn't stand there. No, I mean, I agree. I think the problem after that team fight was that Birmingham now had a really significant split push threat. Kale got a triple kill in it, missed out on the quadra kill by a tiny thread. But with Kale now ahead, Darius able to control Renekton with the teleport, and then this possibility of a split push threat was going to choke Aston out. Aston's only hope really was to like either try and get a pick or somehow create this team fight that Birmingham should never have gone to. Coincidentally, this actually did happen. They got a few picks, which I think was just a lack of sort of Birmingham's either awareness or like vision control. It might be one of those things where they weren't quite used to how the vision works in the new patch, because you're not being able to fight sight wards and pink ward heavy kind of warding strategies. But I think had Birmingham actually started split pushing like sort of from then on, the game could have been very different. But of course, that did manage to at least threaten Birmingham's sort of control of the game.
Absolutely. I mean, Synygy, I want to come to you next actually and talk a little bit about your jungler choices in these games. You had Rek'Sai the first game and Gragas in the second game. I know that those two, alongside Lee, are your favourites in the jungle. And as we discussed about very briefly earlier on, was the lack of a Last Whisper against a Darius and a Gragas. What is it about those two champions that you like being able to bring into a game like this, considering they're both so tanky and have such strong teamfight presence as well?
Yeah, so game 1, or both games actually, we chose to ban away Elise and Lee Sin just because we noticed that their jungler always like preferred to go to those, and he plays so aggressively that he makes those champions like hella scary. You're always tower diving everywhere, and that was basically how we lost first game in the qualification week. So like once those are taken away, the next sort of best junglers are Gragas and Rek'Sai. Rek'Sai is just solid. He's tanky. You can go Sightstone on him, and just like he's one of the few junglers that still makes use of Sightstone, where a lot of junglers on this new patch are going for, the warding jungle item. Can't remember what it's called now.
Tracker's Knife. Yeah.
Tracker's Knife, yeah. But he goes Cinderhulk into Sightstone and is still incredibly tanky. Also, really solid at ganking. It's just like a super solid safe champion. And also his ability to control the map with his passive, so you can always see where the enemy jungler is pretty much. You know, if they're anywhere near a lane that you are, it's like, oh, free counter gank here. Gragas was mainly a compositional thing. Also the fact that they first picked Rek'Sai away from us, first rotation, sorry. But Gragas fit the comp really naturally because we were going to be setting up a split push at some point, and Gragas' disengage is super, super strong with explosive cask. So whenever we were sieging up, like, say, mid, and we had Paul or Kuznia off to the side, and also then Bob Saget in top lane, if they ever tried to engage on us, it was a quick cask at them, and then we just run away. So it was really easy to set up those sieges and not have to worry about them engaging on us, because they had no real hard engage aside from like a flash Bromo or a flash Oriole or something like that.
Absolutely. I mean, well, preparation seems to be the name of the game this week. It's what's won them this 2-0 very cleanly compared to the loss previously. Do you think the onus is now on Aston to begin preparing for the next draft and be aware that, okay, Birmingham, I mean, no doubt they'll meet again in future weeks now as the two top seeds in the NUEL. Do they just try and ban out something away from Synygy here, or do they just try and just make sure they can secure one of these all-important picks, or maybe just open up their champion pools a little bit more?
I don't think banning away Synygy is actually worth the time.
The BM.
No, look, I mean, I just think it's really weird.
No,
like the Elise. I mean, if you don't play Kindred yet, why? But there's 5 jungle champions that are really strong. I mean, I think Aston really need to look at their pick and ban phase. Like in the second game, they banned Morgana, which I spoke to Birmingham about after, and they were like, "Why?" I mean, okay, she's a strong champion in certain specific situations against certain champions, but otherwise, you would never like ban her. And then their kind of pick and ban phase felt a bit weak, felt a bit predictable as well. Like their mid laner, as Synygy did point out, I think has quite a limited champion pool. Like Orianna, and then he picked Castin into Orianna with a comp that really didn't want Castin in it. So they need to expand their champion pools perhaps by like 1 champion each, maybe not in the jungle situation, but perhaps in the solo lanes. And then definitely think about what's going to happen in a situation where they start picking like a team fight comp. Can we actually start picking a different, really sort of adapt how they want to play the game, or at least how they want to draft.
Fair enough. Okay, Trig, coming across to you now. We got very excited on the cast. Well, I got very excited when we saw Renekton locked in, and I was thinking, yeah, he's going to be great this game. He'll have a wicked time against Darius. It's a counter lane, and then as we saw, the 4-man camp on Renekton completely crushed my dreams. But Bob Saget in the first game went 2-2-8 on Tryndamere, very much so got carried through most of that game. And in the second game, he was 9-1 and 12 at the end of that, so a very, very impressive score for him overall. Likewise, Blue Bear first game, extremely hard carry. Second game, not so much. Does this kind of, you'll probably perceive this as quite a baity question, but do you think it's fair to say that Birmingham have got carries across the board rather than just in 1 or 2 individual roles?
I'm going to take the bait. But yeah, so basically, just to explain it, in first game, you had Blue Bear pick Lucian, who was probably the strongest unbanned AD carry that could have been picked right now with the new preseason changes, and you've just absolutely exploded onto it. And then next game, you had the game after, you had Bob Saget on Darius, who's also incredibly strong. And it just was nice to see a range from Birmingham where it just completely changed up and flipped up who was the carry for the team. Just especially in the early game. Obviously, Kuznia went off huge towards the late and started carrying it through the game. Really, I think that it's nice to see a range, and it's like the jungle and support were more stable. So it wasn't like they played really bad in game 1 or really good in game 1 or really amazing in game 2 or really bad in game 2. They were just stable and consistent, which is really what they needed in a more of a supportive role. I mean, I've got to say, the jungler, though, I mean, he was really underperforming. What's his name? Like Synygy guy or something? Like, he missed a couple of really good explosive
Oh, never gonna let that.
Never.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, we saw in the clip he landed a really good explosive cask and really, like, capitalized on that misplay by Aston in that fight in mid lane. But then he also whiffed a few and also baked his team to a triple kill after stealing back Dragon. So, I mean,
And got outsmited at Baron.
outside of Baron, I forgot the most important part.
Sorry.
Just you guys wait. Just you wait.
Oh, we're gonna get
What is it? Sign Vicious.
Sin Vicious is the one, isn't it? Yeah. But yeah, overall it was a really great performance from Birmingham, and seeing them obviously, like Will said, dropping that hashtag forever second curse that they've been blessed with for the last few years. It was really good to see them actually come out and come on top in this case. Will, we've seen other teams kind of floating around as near the top as well. Manchester Bunnies very narrowly missed out on getting into the final against either Aston or Birmingham. From here in the weeks to come, do you think you're going to see other teams begin to start competing from this top spot now that the National League is beginning to settle down, now that we're 3 or 4 weeks in? Or do you still expect from the games that you've seen so far for Birmingham and Aston to be the top two throughout the tournament?
I definitely think the former. So I think both Aston and Birmingham actually showed quite a few weaknesses / mistakes in their series. And I think they're the kind of mistakes that if a team was to prep specifically for one of those teams, they could definitely capitalize on. So, if you watch some of the VODs back, you'll actually notice. I mean, I'm not going to point out the mistakes here, but if you would have watched them back, there were some things you can notice in the way certain players do things, certain habits the players get into, certain places they always wore, things like that. And this goes for Birmingham and for Aston as well. So I think the sort of top, I wouldn't say how many in the top, but there's a certain maybe top 4, maybe top 6 teams. All certainly seem beatable.
Absolutely. Well, that is all we do have time for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed listening into the insights from both Synygy and, of course, from Frozen Dawn and Trid 2. Join us again next week. We'll be looking at the game of the week for this Sunday coming, 6:45 p.m. Feel free to join in and come and see all the action going down. We'll catch you next week.